The following clip has been taken from the Secret Energy Sovereignty Program. If you like what you've heard and you found it inspirational, we recommend that you navigate to secretenergy.com and join Ambassador Training.
Finding the center of yourself is the way that you find the real truth. But what are you avoiding, though? What is the fake truth? Because that sounds weird, especially from a person that believes everything is connected to everything. What would be the fake one? The simulation. Now we see why singularity is right around the corner, because there's kind of only one fake one, and it's called simulation. It's like a replica of who we are. It's like a digitalized version of what we are. It ain't the real thing, but it's close. And this is what's coming next, and I'm going to show you why. So this started also with my brother, I think it was Jeffrey, in the tribe, bringing to my attention that Elon Musk had linked or had been dating from now a year Grimes, okay? And I happen to be aware of Grimes from other things that I was studying in the past about certain occult groups that were moving around, but I didn't actually see any information that these two were together. Elon Musk and Grimes are actually in a relationship together. And by the way, you know, if you just want to see this so you can put the dots together for yourself, I always say that, you know, I'm an observer, so I'm not here to tell anybody, you know, what's going on. I'm here to educate myself, and that's what I'm doing. I'm going to show you how I educated myself, because I don't have time to judge anybody. What I do is I just observe. And if you're painting with a certain color, like I said in the tribe, then it lets me, as an observer and an artist, see your spectrum. And what your spectrum is telling me is your vibration. And these are the things that are far from judgment. They're just facts. Facts are not judgments. Opinions are judgments, but not facts. Okay, so let's look very briefly at just this image. And what this image is detailing, let me close this off right here, is Elon Musk's relationship with Grimes, okay? And there's just a couple pictures here, and you have to clearly see that Grimes is obviously fascinated with the character off of Maleficent. In fact, this particular template, you know, whatever this particular entity is, I seem to, in fact, also Angelina Jolie and a few others that I recognize this template. It's almost like when I see people, I see something if I recognize another entity that look like them. I guess it's just like my own spiritual catalog. And so maybe this is not what she started looking like, but once they start looking like this, it generally means a certain entity is present, okay? Now, what this also did for me is that, first of all, in a man's life, the most important thing around him is generally his queen. And the queen kind of is like dictating everything about his character, because the queen is so powerful that she can dictate your character. So let's just give it the benefit of the doubt that Elon was a great guy before this started, and he had no intentions of throwing the world into a simulation. This could possibly not be the truth anymore. And it's because the actual lyrics and things that Grimes uses within her music is all about submitting to the simulation. In fact, on Elon Musk's release of his Cybertruck, in the beginning of the keynote, someone that looked like an android came out and introduced the car and everything that was going to happen, but in an android-like voice, walking like an android. It has now been proved that that was actually Grimes, his girlfriend, that she dressed up like an android. But this is not all that Grimes is into. And in fact, I cannot detail what else Grimes is involved in, because Grimes is not a physical person only by herself. This is a collective being, meaning that the group Grimes and all the grimy things that you can't see around have an agenda, and now it's confirmed that that agenda is to propel the transhumanistic simulation. So while I would love to believe that Elon coming in a shining armor or driving in a Tesla was going to take us away from the oligarch Rothschilds and their oil industry and put us onto green energy, using the sun to power our devices so we can quiet down the earth and reduce the greenhouse gases, whatever you want to call them, the emissions and all that kind of stuff, the smoke, the smog, the pollution. Today, I literally have to say that if this is allowed to continue, not saying that I could stop it, but that others didn't have a pathway out of this, this will be worse than the Rothschilds. That's a hell of a statement. To live in a reality that would be worse than what the oil barons were able to cook up would be ridiculous. But this is what you're talking about. This is not the lesser of the two evils. This is the greater, because it involves something specific. And I'm going to explain to you how I came into this knowledge, right? So once I got on the grind, now this is sleuth work, by the way. This is not judgment. This is sleuth work. Let me show you some good old sleuth work. So I go to Grimes, right? Wikipedia. It's a same page we all have access to, right? But what am I looking for? If I was a cosmic detective, what would I be trying to find if Grimes had gotten a little more grimier than everybody thought? I will be looking for clues. And the main thing that I will go to is I need to go to what you're resonating with. And it just so happens that Wikipedia, they're just so brash these days because they put all your personal life out there. And in fact, many of these people write this. Okay, they write this and then they send it to Wikipedia and they detail it. So without boring you without the details, I'm just going to tell you what I grabbed out of here. And what I grabbed out of here was actually Magical Clouds. And Magical Clouds is another person that has been on the list for quite a bit of time. The spiritual police have been kind of looking for him from galaxy to galaxy. It's a joke, but not really. And also his counterpart, Devon, has also been another being that we've been trying to bring in for questioning. Now, you'll notice somewhat of a similarity here because they're also the same person. But without that being an anomaly, it's just to understand that these were the initiates. And when you understand the symbolism, like we got a crescent moon here on the arm, clearly, I don't think he's singing about love. Not saying it's all about love all the time, but hey, we could use a little bit. These kind of symbols and these kind of call tags we're all too familiar with. Let me move this over. I think I'm blocking it. These kind of symbols and these kind of call tags, as a cosmic detective, this is not looking great. Anyway, what this ultimately comes into is it comes into this website right here. Because it turns out that the way that Elon Musk and Grimes, according to record, got together was because they were looking at a form of art called Rococo, I believe it's called. It's basically that super Victorian, super gilded gold wood, the antique stuff. And they both made a statement about a specific piece and they both made the same statement, but they were in different places in different times. And somebody mentioned that hey, you two made the same statement about that piece of art. This is their code words. We think you two should be together. And that's how they got together a year ago. But this is about something far more deeper. And I explained to everyone about these two forces. We talked about this, the last tribe gathering, about the oil barons and the new emerging electrical group and how they were thresholding, even strangling the oil barons for power. They have all their personal information. All the computers and the technologies are now under their control. So they don't have to worry about, per se, getting bombed and killed. That was the old way the oligarchs handled their business. They will get ousts. They will get WikiLeaked. They will get Assange, and what was the other guy? The other CIA guy. That stuff happens to them because hackers, which are all a part of this digital network that I'm talking about, they got hackers. The whole thing with the cryptocurrency was their idea because something else was going on with their group. They're not the rich ones. Okay, and I just want you to pay attention to what I'm saying here. These are not the rich ones, okay? Meaning that you had like this group, obviously in the past, like the oil barons that come from generation after generations of money. And it is through that money and power and the ownership of resources that they had come into power and stay in power. Okay. But this other group, they were struggling. They didn't have resources or cash. Okay. So they needed to get those resources in cash. And this didn't happen too long ago. Let me show you why it happened at the birth of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. And this is what leads to more of the darker, uncomfortable side of all of this. Because if you remember, the only use for Bitcoin when it began was on Silk Road and 4chan to buy at minimum drugs. More commonly, slaves and sexual favors, perversions, informations for blackmail, bribing. All this stuff was sold on the sites 4chan. And because you needed to do that anonymously, you needed an anonymous currency. And because these were all hackers, this is where they were buying their credit card profiles and full dumps, half dumps, all that kind of stuff was all being done there. They needed to solve a problem, which was by creating a currency that didn't allow, if I'm requesting this information, the last thing I want is you to know who I am. And if you're buying it from me, the last thing I want you to know is who I am. So before it became one of those things in society, like let's protect our freedoms by not allowing us to use these banks that take all of our information, it was always, I can't let you know who I am, and I don't want to know who you are, but I need for what you're about to give me I need to pay you, and I need what you have. Just so everybody understands that. That is the real purpose and had been the purpose of cryptocurrency. So this means that, as you see here, and I'm showing you a literal entry to this blog called Intelligence Rising. Now, Intelligence Rising, this blog, it's called Less Wrong. That's like the greater of two evils once again, or the greater good statement. Okay. So this site, Less Wrong, was actually the instrumental component of putting Grimes and Elon Musk together. But let me show you how that's just all even a coded thing within itself. Less Wrong is a community blog, which you probably never heard of, and a forum focused on discussions of what? Cognitive biases, philosophy, psychology, economics, rationality, and what? Artificial intelligence, machine learning, etc. In fact, despite all of what they say, they also discuss, which you can kind of say they do discuss this stuff. More importantly, it's AI, and the idea even of AI eradicating all humans, meaning that AI, the probability of within AI's code, a malevolent string, and all these kind of things are discussed. But let me just show you what was most important to gather from Less Wrong. So remember, I told you they were broke. So they were broke. There was a lot of them. And let me describe, first of all, who they are. Okay. So you remember that whole Marilyn Manson group? Remember also caught a few of the trust fund kids that were actually even family members of some of the wealthy people from the Silicon Valley? Remember the people I was telling you about that I was tracking through Crunchbase that were the children of some of the new millionaires, and how they were all into making horror movies. Meaning most of the horror movies that you see right now are funded by them. So they make horror movies. And also they have this extreme issue going on with things like minorities and white privilege and those kind of things, meaning that they have some kind of racial issues going on with what they call minorities. Okay. And this could basically be anybody that is not in their group. Okay. And that's how they stress it. But in this process, because they didn't have any money, they had to create a way for somehow all of them that were involved to get some money real fast, and a lot of money. So listen to what this says. Wei Day, one of the first people Satoshi Nakamoto contacted about Bitcoin, was a frequent Less Wrong contributor. Okay, now, first of all, what this is stating right away is contrary to what most people think about Satoshi, which is something I also said, that Satoshi was even an intelligence. Most people believe that Satoshi is actually not real. And then what happened after that is a bunch of people saying that they were Satoshi, and then the identity of Satoshi has been forever shrouded. Okay? Now in this, it's literally saying directly that not only was Satoshi real, but a person who was one of the lead contributors of this blog, Less Wrong, knew Satoshi. And Satoshi contacted him. Now, Satoshi was intelligence. I'm not even going to get into that right now because there's too many keywords. But the person that is involved in intelligence, which I keep saying is also in the conscious community, that the intelligence agency is inside of the conscious community. They're running most of these houses now. The Matthew North, go check his shit out. I just don't want to take too many hits on telling everybody different names and things like that, because then people go back and say, the Seven said this and this. Go look at Matthew North and see what he disclosed about Joe Rogan and going on it labs and all these different people who are also in the Burning Man crew and all these different people who have been working some kind of mysticism. And I would still tell you that probably 60 to 70% of them are oblivious to what they're doing. They're just following along as if it's one of their fantastic horror movies, when really there's only a few of the controllers up there. Like, they think that this is digital only, and that digitaria is a new advent onto this realm, when some of the original malevolent type AIs species, also known as the Greys, were already pegged to be using this kind of technology, this kind of digital surveillance kind of technology where everybody's information is expunged. Okay, so just look at what it says here, that this guy, it says, so was Hal Finley. So there's another guy that also knew Satoshi, that also knew one of the lead writers, that was a lead writer himself. That was the first person besides Satoshi to make a Bitcoin transaction. So we're saying then that if you were actually a member of this website back when Bitcoin was 91 cents, which was a few years ago, probably like about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe even a little bit more, you would have gotten a tip that says the first mention of Bitcoin from Less Wrong, a post called Making Money with Bitcoin, which has a timestamp. So these are people who are not lying. It was in early 2011 when it was 91 cents. So it was in 2011. And when Gwern predicted that it could someday be upwards of 10,000 a Bitcoin, and he quoted Moldbug, who advised that if Bitcoin becomes the new global monetary system, one Bitcoin purchase today for 90 cents, last time I checked, will make you a very wealthy individual. Even the probability of Bitcoin succeeding is epsilon at 1 millionth in one. It's still worthwhile for anyone to buy at least a few Bitcoins now. I would not put in 1,000,000 to 1 though. So I recommend, I put it at 1,000,000 to 1 though. So I recommend that you go out and buy a few Bitcoins if you have the technical chops. My financial advice is not to buy more than 10, which should be FU money if Bitcoin wins. Okay. Now, again, you got to also realize that these are codes, just like CNN when they're talking. That's what that guy shows in Gematria. That's all he does on TV. He's just like, Gematria crazy. This shit drives me even crazy listening to him. But it's real that they say the same thing all the time. And if you knew the codes, the Gematria to it, you would find out that every time they want a certain kind of energy, they just use a certain number, a certain day. And they keep saying that over again. It was 13 people in the house fire. And then it was 31 people stuck in traffic today. And they keep using these words and then letting them stick out. And then this creates a Kabbalistic code of Gematria. In any way, so what I'm getting at here is that there's your way of watching CNN, which seems like what's going on. And then there's the initiated secret society version of watching CNN, which is every other word is a code that is actually a message that is informing, like news is supposed to, everybody that is affiliated with that group. And if you don't have the code, just like the Enigma machine, you never crack what's really being said. Now it's just the code, like the Quran is able to tell a story, and just a regular story with characters, and only if you know the code are you able to expunge the story. So let me clear that up. Remember, the Quran actually has a code inside of it that is numerically equivalent to the number 19. This means from the time of Al-Fatiha, which is the beginning of the first surah in the Quran, all the way through it, the amount of times the name Muhammad's mentioned, the amount of times that the surahs all add up, all of this stuff is all numerically equivalent to the number 19 in the perfect Quran, which was only revealed by Rashad Khalifa and he made it to Vegas with it before they killed him. And some of them went into circulation because there was a community there that were reading from the real Quran. Also, I need to make a correction. Muhammad's name was never mentioned in the Quran. It throws off all the math. It's like Jesus mentioning his own name in prayer. You know, people pray in Jesus' name, like Jesus told him to do that. But how would Jesus conclude his own prayer? In my own name? That would throw everybody off right away. So it just shows you there has to be something added. But in the Quran, it's very important to understand this because the Quran actually reads out like a story. Like when you're reading it, that's why Muhammad said, this is my miracle given to me by the angel Jibril, because supposedly only angels can do stuff like this. Know the code to all the numbers of what's being explained further depth, but still carry on a story that actually is like a real story that you're reading. So I'm just trying to explain to you, this is how encryption works. So in conclusion, when you're reading something like this, when those that were a part of this site, which included Elon Musk's girlfriend, which included many other people that were actually using this currency already, especially within these groups of buying information, buying other people's information, buying stem cells, buying hearts and other organs and all sorts of stuff, they were given a tip that said, hey, double down, triple down, quadruple down, buy this stuff because you're going to be rich. And we cannot do what we plan to do unless we all get rich. So it's important to understand this because it's a sequence of things, because if you don't even know this, you won't even know where they came from. You even try to ascribe them to a group that is not even the right group because those groups probably have money already. These people did not have any money already. This is why I said it's going to be a boomerang in this conversation, because remember, without no money and no education, I was able to learn what I know because I was in exploration of myself. These people are also in some level of exploration. I don't know what they're looking for. I don't know what I know what they found, but I don't know what they're looking for. But it just so happens that in this form of exploration, like if you notice Elon Musk, what are they doing all the time? You're talking about flying off somewhere, planes, rockets, exploration, inventing and pioneering new kind of vehicles, a new way of life as far as from energy level. So they're exploring and they're pioneering this reality. And then that's why I'm saying it. So if we're sitting back here complaining because we're in some kind of weird mind-controlled program, we may complain ourselves to a point where it's like we can't do anything anymore because the new sheriff, if you may, is now in town bringing this digital age. They have so much money. You can't imagine a 10 cent to 10,000 or not a dollar to 10,000. Like, I spent $100. How much do I got? Let me do the math. This is why the repo market, which is what gives money to the bank every day, is having to funnel billions of dollars into the bank every day. It's a crisis right now because somebody is pulling out a bunch of money. And remember what I said about cryptocurrency, even the word meaning to basically to get rid of the dead presidents. When money goes into crypto, it goes nowhere. It's like a way of basically killing dead presidents. Just fucking like digital necromancy or something. This is what they're on. Like, I can't make this stuff up. But anyway, 10,000 times I had $100 to spend. Just $100. I'll throw $100 on it. I'm good. I got a little bit left in the trust fund. Let's see what I get back. What? A meal? I get $1 million for $100 from a tip? I know some of you are like, well, what website is that? What else are they talking about now? Of course, I asked myself that question. I haven't read through it. I got a lot of stuff to do, but I did see one article that really lets you understand the kind of thinking going on here. And this is the last entry. Meaning that these are not dummies. Also, these are people that are very well learned. There's many with them, and they come from all walks of life. And they're all united in this. Okay, so let me also explain this very briefly. That remember how I kept saying that we need to get to our children and we need to develop things for our children? So this was the children that our previous generation, our mother and father, that they didn't get to. Okay. And this generation specifically, especially in other countries, because a lot of times you think about just America, but you got to think about China and you got to think about other places that the kids grew up with these weird cartoons. Okay. Like if you go to another country, watch their cartoons, it's not G.I. Joe. It's something totally different. And in these weird cartoons, it's so wild that it's kind of like what you see with the K-pop thing right now. Like everything's just bright colors and they fascinated off of this big boobed cartoon. And I'm like, yo, what are they seeing, shorty? We got flesh right here. But anyway, so they're on another thing. It's like it's hard to mesh with what they're involved in, but there's a large amount of them. Okay. And I'm not saying them as separate, but I'm just saying our children are numerous. And for the last almost 20 years, or at least 30 years, there's been such an indoctrination of programming that has gone on. Actually, let's say the last 15, 20 years, not our generation, the one that came after that, because we were like not in a position at all to be educating what would be our siblings. Okay. But where they went was to those multi-role playing games, Witcher, anime, all of that stuff, which actually was steering them into a certain level of consciousness, which we can just call digitaria. To get into a mindset that when this rolls out, you're going to find, meaning when the simulation rolls out, when ray tracing rolls out, when total immersion and going in and being able to feel the boobs of your favorite actor and feel the stimulation behind them sexually engaged with you, when that rolls out, these are not going to be the people like, I'm just trying to work on my higher consciousness right now. This is not going to be people like the university that want to take those kind of courses unless we deploy a quantum solution. Like I got till 2020. I'm not giving myself any time after that. If I can't pull this off at 2020, then it's too far gone in my world. I need to see big traction from whatever I'm doing as a quantum solution to prevent what we're on the cusp of actually seeing, because we could imagine ourselves, and this is what I was saying about marketing, you can imagine the customers are thinking like you. So you can imagine that the rest of the world is actually out there wanting to go into this high level of awareness, right? But what if that awareness is sold to them the same way this site is selling it, like a transhumanistic upgrade rather than a spiritual upgrade? Where one is actually to go even further and deeper into what we would call hedonism. Like basically there's really no logic in what you're saying, but somehow it starts to make sense. And then everybody follows that lead. So let me just read this here. What it says, it's talking about symbiotic wars. Okay. A symbiotic war. That is almost like a paradox within itself until it's explained. And it makes perfect sense. And meaning is a self-replicating pattern of information. Some change, some survive, some die out. Now we remember on when the cryptocurrency became big, okay? What did you see all the time inside of all the chats? If you were participating in the big, ICOs and all ICO sales, and all you would see is all these memes of what they would say, Scotty the Toad or Keck, which were actually known to be viruses within themselves, digital viruses that even 2600 and many other groups had collaborated on certain memes that were embedding things in people's mind. And I actually had a file on those, and I, of course, didn't want to show it because they are supposedly digital viruses. But this is basically things that repeat over and over again. And as you're watching them, it actually starts to really tamper with the brain a little bit. So there's a reference toward literally that, because that was kind of known. They used to call it, you could get wrecked by Keck. And what that means is that someone could create a digital virus, a digital virus meme that could actually overprogram your consciousness if you were weak-minded. And this is the quotation of today on everything I'm saying. If you are weak-minded. This is what I was saying also why you definitely need to know who you are, know your instrument, because if you don't, it's easy for someone else to start suggesting things, and the mind is actually a little bit more weak because it's still in that transitional, what do I want to be? I don't know who I am. Where with this energy, it will dictate to you who you are and what you are going to become. That's what the whole social media thing is also tied into. So it makes a statement here, which I want everybody to think about later on today. And it just says that the most virulent memes often reproduce themselves via their own inverses. Now, this is clever wording anyway. And so whoever's writing this stuff, whoever's the editors here, they're not dumb. They can write on several different topics by using these words. Talking about how flat earthers are wrong increases awareness of the flat earther meme. Increasing awareness of the flat earther meme equals proliferating the flat earther meme. Okay, so let me break that down. What's being said is that when you're talking about flat earthers being wrong, it actually brings more people into looking at things related to flat earth. And we all know about that. So even if a person doesn't agree with what somebody else is saying, it makes them go check it out. Let me see what they, flat earth. How can they believe flat earthers? Who are these flat earthers? So then it says, increasing awareness of the flat earther meme equals proliferating the flat earther meme, and anti-flat earthers spawn flat earthers. Okay? Meaning that the more people then that disagree with that there's not a flat earth, it actually creates, in that whole process of disagreeing and writing about how you disagree and even making memes about how stupid flat earthers are, it recruits more flat earthers. So then it says in conclusion, flat earthers spawn anti-flat earthers. Every anti-flat earther contains a dormant flat earther meme. So basically what is being got at here is that this war that is being waged is a war of differences, a symbiotic difference. How chaotic could this be? But literally it's saying that the more they create division, the more it will propel a war. There's nothing more. It's like a never-ending war. This is what they were talking about in what was that? Avengers, Infinity War. Symbiotic war is Infinity War. You create so many different things that people don't agree on. And when someone doesn't agree on one thing, another group agrees that that's what they agree on. And then this subsets and it replicates like a virus, hence why the self-replicating information meme is given as a comparison for this. So this is wild. Because when you think about the future, especially from the way they keep presenting it, this particular uniqueness that's coming out, like dye your hair pink, cut off one of your fingers, do this, do that, so you can prove your uniqueness. It's not uniqueness. It's like it couldn't be anything further from uniqueness. It comes off as a idea of uniqueness, like when someone dyes their hair pink and paints their nails blonde and makes a cross up between jazz and satanic music, if you may. This is seen as uniqueness. You see the play? That's the play in the simulation. That's why there's all of these animojis and things where you can change your face into different than what you look like. This is precursor Blade Runner, what you're talking about here. The next thing is the upgrades. And you've seen that happening with our first round was the silicone upgrades. Bigger breast, bigger booty. Now it's going to be about bigger brain, more data, more ability to process that data. Like I said, feeding into, well, there's only one of those, but what if we can replicate it? That's Gemini Man. Remember I told you, Will Smith is sitting on a template that many of us, even in this tribe, are actually on that same template, meaning that there's overarchs. In that template, you'll find that when you look at the person, you see characteristics and traits. You can see the hands, the way they move their hands. These are called templates. But not everybody on the template is aligned with the collective. Some on the template, and for those who haven't seen Gemini Man, this may not make any sense to you, but this is the movie that Will Smith just recently produced where there's a younger version of him playing as his enemy in the movie. And they were talking about how it was a technological miracle, and Ang Lee put it together, and more transhumanists put this movie together. And what it's about is cloning a person and basically breeding out their weaknesses, mainly compassion and empathy. This is specific in the movie, and that the one that basically they're treating this guy as their father, who's not really their father. The movie Gemini Man is verbatim what this agenda is basically about. It's about cloning our characters, creating simulations of us, embedding those simulations into simulated worlds, and then ramping up the technology, because this has only been how many years with the microchip and all this has happened? 5 more years of the microchip. And man, especially with what do they call that? It was another $4 or $5 billion project. This is basically the system project. Basically, it's a VR system, and Magic Leap. That's what it's called, Magic Leap. And the same people behind Magic Leap. That's what I'm saying. These are all the same people. That's the other thing. Is like you go to Crunchbase and you'll see this same guy. You'll see the people who wrote this blog. You'll see the people funding the Elon Musk. Like I said before, you'll see, like with Facebook, Peter Thiel gave Mark Zuckerberg the first $100,000 to start Facebook. He gave Vitalik Buterin the first $50,000 to create Etherium on Kickstarter. Then that same group is the same people that are actually on this blog, and they're all transhumanists, okay? And then now they're bringing in and pioneering a new road of technology, and everybody's on board, except for me. Everybody's like, oh, wow, all this technology coming. How are you going to give me my own self and then act like you gave me something? This is the games going on. How are you going to take my ancestors' knowledge and wisdom and then tell me you created it and then try to push it off on me as if that's going to be my reality? Like, this is atrocities. I couldn't let this go on anyway, as far as in my own consciousness. And that's what this is coming into. This is coming into, and this conversation today is about what you gonna do.